The gleaming halls of Stellar Station seemed to pulse with anticipation as Jack Monroe adjusted his diplomatic collar for the 100th time. As Earth's lead cultural liaison, he should be used to first contact protocols by now, but something about today's meeting had his nerves wound tight. The Kelrathi had arrived exactly on schedule, their ship a sleek marvel of crystalline technology that made Earth's finest vessels look like primitive toys. Jack had studied their basic anatomy, humanoid with distinctive copper-toned skin that shifted hues with emotion, and hair that seemed to float in its own personal atmosphere, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of her presence. Sela stepped through the airlock chamber with fluid grace, her movements almost impossibly smooth. Her skin gleamed like molten metal under the station's lights, continuously shifting between bright copper and deep bronze. Each step made her crown of blonde curls ripple and float around her face, defying gravity in a way that mesmerized Jack completely. "Welcome to Stellar Station," Jack managed, extending his hand in the traditional Earth greeting. He'd been briefed that Kelrathi found such gestures primitive but acceptable in diplomatic settings. Sela regarded his outstretched hand with eyes that swirled like liquid gold. Suddenly, her pupils dilated to encompass almost her entire iris, and she threw herself backward onto the floor, arms and legs splaying out in an elaborate pattern. Her copper skin flashed bright orange as she began making high-pitched clicking sounds while her floating hair formed complex spiraling shapes above her. The other diplomats in the chamber froze, uncertain how to respond. Jack's heart pounded as he wondered if he'd already committed some massive cultural offense. After 30 seconds that felt like hours, Sela sprang back to her feet with feline agility. Her skin had returned to its warm copper shade, though tinges of pink. Embarrassment, he'd learned from the briefing, rippled across her cheeks. "I apologize," she said, her voice musical but stilted. "I attempt your greeting custom was correct." Jack blinked rapidly, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. Well, that's not exactly how but thank you for trying." Her translator chip must have malfunctioned because his response made her golden eyes widen further. "Oh, then perhaps this." She suddenly bent at the waist in a perfect 90-degree angle, holding the position for so long Jack worried she'd toppled over and couldn't get back up. "That's closer," he offered weakly as she straightened again. The formal diplomatic dinner that followed proved equally bewildering. Sela had clearly researched human dining etiquette, but seemed to have accessed information from wildly different centuries. She alternated between perfectly refined Victorian table manners and attempts at what appeared to be cave person behavior, at one point enthusiastically eating her salad with her hands while maintaining impeccable posture. Throughout the evening, Jack found himself oddly charmed by her earnest attempts to adapt. When she tried to replicate human laughter and produced a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane, he couldn't help but genuinely smile. "Your amusement vocalization is beautiful," she observed, her skin warming to a soft rose gold. Jack's breath caught at the compliment. "You think so? I think your laugh is pretty amazing, too." Sela's copper complexion deepened to a rich bronze, and for the first time that night, she offered what seemed like her natural smile. It transformed her face entirely, making Jack's heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with diplomatic duty. Later, as they toured the station's observation deck, Sela found herself drawn to the viewport where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the cosmic tapestry. Without warning, she reached out and touched Jack's arm, her fingers warm and surprisingly soft against his skin. "Your planet, it calls to something in me," she whispered, her usual attempts at proper grammar slipping. "As does its representative." Jack turned to face her fully, struck by the vulnerability in her expression. The floating curls around her face had settled into gentle waves, and her skin glowed with a soft inner light. "Sela," he said softly, "you don't have to try so hard to be something you're not. Your culture, your way of doing things, it's all fascinating just as it is." Her eyes searched his face, golden irises swirling with emotion. "But your customs speak of specific rituals for attraction. I would not wish to appear barbaric." The admission hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Jack found himself leaning closer, drawn by her unique beauty and the genuine connection he felt forming despite the cultural chasm between them. Their first kiss was tentative, exploratory. Jack's lips met skin that felt like warm silk, and he tasted something faintly metallic but sweet. Sella's fingers curled into his shirt, her other hand rising to trace the line of his jaw with wonder. When they parted, her copper skin had shifted to a warm golden hue that seemed to glow from within. That, she breathed, was not in any database. Jack chuckled, his forehead resting against hers. Some things you can't learn from a manual. In that moment, looking at this beautiful alien who was trying so hard to bridge their worlds, Jack knew their relationship would be anything but conventional. But as station lights dimmed for the night cycle and they stood together watching the stars, he couldn't imagine wanting anything else. The next morning would bring new challenges. Sella's continued attempts to master human customs resulting in increasingly creative misunderstandings, while Jack struggled to interpret her true meaning behind each gesture. But already, something had shifted. The formal dance of diplomacy was giving way to something far more personal, far more dangerous, and far more exciting. Sella arrived at Jack's quarters the next morning carrying what appeared to be an antique Earth music device, a boombox from the 1980s, complete with shoulder straps and oversized speakers. "I bring rhythmic expression tool," she announced proudly, hefting the device onto his table. "For seduction dance of your people." Jack nearly spilled his coffee. My what now? Dating custom research indicates rhythmic movement essential for human courtship. She pressed play, and the opening bars of Safety Dance filled the room. Sella immediately dropped to one knee, thrust her fist skyward, and began what could only be described as an interpretive dance combining breakdancing and religious flagellation. "No, no, no!" Jack rushed to turn off the music, accidentally knocking over his coffee in the process. The hot liquid splashed across Sella's copper leg, and her skin instantly shifted to a silvery blue, apparently Kelrath's equivalent of panic. "I harm you?" she cried, her floating curls whipping frantically around her face. She grabbed his hands, pressing her forehead to his knuckles in what Jack would later learn was a profound Kelrathi apology. "Please accept my reproductive organs as compensation." "You're what?" Jack yelped, trying to pull his hands free while simultaneously attempting to process yet another cultural minefield. "Is this not proper?" Sella looked up at him with those swirling gold eyes, now wide with confusion. Her skin had shifted to a pale copper with swirls of pink. "Database says humans often offer body parts in apology." Jack sank into a chair, laughing helplessly. "We say give an arm and a leg, but it's just a figure of speech. We don't actually." He stopped, noticing how her copper skin had begun oscillating between confused brown and embarrassed pink. "Sella, where exactly are you getting your information about humans?" She reached into a hidden pocket in her flowing garment and produced a data chip. "Cultural Archive 47B, as provided by your diplomatic corps." Jack took the chip, frowning. "Let me check this with the system." When the contents appeared on his screen, he groaned. "Sella, this is from the historical fiction section. You've been learning human customs from old sitcoms, outdated etiquette books, and—" He squinted at one file. "Medieval romance novels." Her copper skin turned bright purple mortification, he guessed. But they were marked cultural significance, high. By a grad student with a sense of humor, apparently. Jack watched as she sank onto his couch, her hovering curls drooping like sad clouds. "Hey, it's not your fault. Want to start over with actual current customs." She brightened immediately, her skin warming to its default copper. For the next hour, they sat close together while Jack explained modern human dating. To her credit, Sella paid rapt attention, occasionally reaching out to touch his arm when she wanted clarification. "So the male typically initiates first physical contact?" she asked, her translator giving her voice a melodic quality. "Not always, but traditionally, yes, though things are much more equal now." Sella nodded thoughtfully. "And these dates, they involve shared activities. Usually something both people enjoy. Dinner, movies, walks. What if viewing celestial phenomena?" Jack smiled. "Perfect example." "Then may I request, what is phrase ask you out? Tomorrow, lunar eclipse visible from observation deck 7. His heart fluttered at her hopeful expression. "I'd love to." The next evening, Jack arrived at the observation deck to find Sella had transformed the space. Soft bioluminescent moss from her homeworld created gentle lighting, while small copper bells chimed quietly in the ventilation currents. She'd even managed to procure what looked like a picnic setup, complete with a checkered blanket. "This is beautiful," Jack admitted, genuinely touched by her efforts. Sella's skin warmed to a rose-gold hue. I consulted proper databases this time. As they settled onto the blanket, Jack produced a bottle of wine. From Earth's Napa Valley region. I brought fermented callo fruit. She held up a crystalline bottle containing iridescent liquid. For courage. Courage. For this. Before Jack could ask what this meant, Sella shifted closer. Her floating curls cast moving shadows across his face as she leaned in. Jack Monroe, may I perform Kelrathi gratitude display? Sure. She stood gracefully, then began to dance. Unlike her previous attempts at human dances, this movement was fluid and natural. Her copper skin shifted through warm hues as she moved, telling a story Jack couldn't quite translate but felt in his bones. She circled him slowly, her curls creating luminous patterns in the dim light. When she knelt before him close enough that he could feel the unusual warmth of her skin, she placed one hand on his chest. Feel my gratitude, feel my interest, feel my... She paused, searching for words. My heart fire for you. Jack's breath caught. Through her palm, he felt something like electricity, but warm and comforting. I feel it, he whispered. The eclipse began, Earth's shadow creeping across the lunar surface. But neither of them noticed, lost in their own celestial event. When Sella leaned in to kiss him this time, it was with confidence. Jack tasted the sweet callow wine on her lips, felt the subtle vibration in her skin that he was beginning to recognize meant contentment. Their hands found each other, fingers interlacing in a gesture that needed no translation. When they pulled apart, Jack tucked one of her floating curls behind her ear, or tried to, as it stubbornly drifted back to its original position. I am falling for you, Sella admitted, her grammatical perfection slipping in the emotional moment. Despite all my incorrectness about your culture. Maybe because of it, Jack countered. Your efforts to understand, to adapt, it's beautiful, and I'm falling too. They spent the rest of the eclipse talking softly, sharing stories of their childhoods on different worlds. Jack learned that Kelrathi children were born with silver skin that gradually developed their adult copper tones. Sella discovered that human bobbies couldn't walk for nearly a year, which she found both hilarious and terrifying. When a passing security guard reminded them of curfew, they reluctantly prepared to leave. But as they gathered their picnic supplies, Sella suddenly froze. Jack, I must confess something, the gratitude dance. Yes. Her skin flickered between copper and pink. It is also preliminary stage of Kelrathi mating ritual, I should have clarified. Jack paused in folding the blanket, and if I said I was okay with that? The hope in her golden eyes made his heart race. You would be interested in such progression with me. Instead of answering with words, Jack stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. Sella, I want to learn everything about your culture, including the parts you're too embarrassed to explain. Her laugh chimed like crystal bells, and she pulled him into another kiss, deeper this time. When they parted, her skin had settled into the most beautiful shade of warm gold he'd ever seen. Tomorrow, she declared, I teach you Kelrathi kissing is much different. As they walked back to their quarters, hands clasped, Jack wondered what other surprises their cross-species courtship would bring. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them, and maybe even learn a few alien dances of his own. The next 3 weeks became a whirlwind of cultural experimentation, as Jack and Sella attempted to navigate their budding romance. What started as amusing misunderstandings evolved into genuine moments of connection, each teaching the other about their worlds. One evening, after another diplomatic session left them both drained, Sella invited Jack to her quarters. I wish to show authentic Kelrathi, not performance version. Her rooms were transformed from the standard station cubicle into something that felt like walking inside a geode. Crystals of various sizes grew from surfaces, emanating soft internal light. The air smelled of ozone and something sweetly spicy. Environmental regulators, limited, she explained, gesturing apologetically, cannot fully replicate homeworld. It's incredible, Jack breathed, running his hand near, but not touching, a pulsing crystal formation. Why hide this from everyone else? Fear of judgment, of seeming too alien. Her copper skin shifted to a muted tone. I work hard to appear digestible. Jack caught her hand, marveling at the way her skin felt both metallic and soft. Sella, this is beautiful. You're beautiful. All of you, the parts you think are too alien included. She led him to a seating area where the floor seemed to mold itself to their bodies. From a hidden compartment, she withdrew what looked like a holographic projector. "Before we continue," she said solemnly, "there is truth I must share." The projector activated, filling the room with moving images. Jack recognized himself in several scenes, moments from their dates, their first meeting, even private moments he thought they'd shared alone. "Station surveillance?" he guessed, confused. "No," Sella's skin turned deep purple with shame. "My personal recording, every gesture, every micro-expression. I studied you, Jack Monroe, to perform correctly." The realization hit him. "That's how you knew about the boombox, the dances. And how I learned humans sometimes desire space when processing emotions, yet still appreciate knowing their partner remains nearby. How your pupils dilate when you find something beautiful. How your left eyebrow raises precisely 2.4 millimeters when skeptical but amused." Jack watched himself in the projections, laughing at her attempts to use Earth slang incorrectly, teaching her to make coffee but adding too much sugar because she'd noted he often added more than the recommended amount. "You've been analyzing me like a science project," he said slowly. Her curls drooped, losing their characteristic float. "I dishonored our connection. To Kelrathi, understanding one's potential mate is sacred duty, but humans value spontaneity." "Sella," Jack waited until she met his eyes. "You've been trying to understand me better than I understand myself. That's not dishonest. That's incredible." Relief shifted her skin to warm rose tones. "Then you accept my method." "I accept you," he clarified. "But maybe now we can learn about each other together naturally." She considered this, then nodded. "Together as equals." "Actually," Jack grinned, "while you've been studying me, I've been doing some research of my own." From his pocket, he produced a data chip. "Thanks to your friend Zara in cultural exchange." Sella's eyes widened as he activated his own holographic display. Images of Kelrathi courtship rituals filled the space. The proper execution of the gratitude dance, the significance of skin color changes, the meaning behind the head-touching gesture she'd used when apologizing. "The reproductive organs thing," Jack said, struggling to maintain a serious expression. "Apparently that's actually a very ancient formal apology, like offering medieval fealty." Sella buried her face in her hands, groaning. Her skin cycled rapidly through embarrassed colors. "I invoke ritual not used for millennia." "Hey," Jack scooted closer, gently pulling her hands down. "I thought it was sweet, in a completely terrifying way." She laughed, that crystalline sound he loved, and suddenly they were both laughing together at the absurdity of their cultural collision. When their laughter faded, they found themselves close, foreheads nearly touching. "Jack," Sella's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, "I must tell you something more. The gratitude dance I performed, it was not complete." "What do you mean?" "In full ritual, gratitude leads to appreciation, which leads to—" She pressed her palm to his chest again. "To heart-fire binding, physical joining that creates telepathic link temporarily, is why I hesitated." Jack's heart raced under her touch. What would this link feel like? Sharing of emotions, memories. For Kelrathi is ultimate intimacy, to know another's mind completely. "And you were afraid to show me that much of yourself." Her golden eyes shimmered. "Afraid you would see my feelings were true, that I was not performing interest to improve diplomatic relations, but truly," she struggled with the translation, "falling into you." The vulnerability in her admission made Jack's breath catch. "What if I want to see? What if I want you to see me too?" "The link requires physical harmony, bodies becoming one rhythm." Her skin warmed to invitation gold. "If you consent." Rather than answer with words, Jack kissed her. This kiss was different from their previous encounters, deeper, more urgent. Sella's skin temperature rose, and she guided his hands to rest on her shoulders where her skin generated small electrical pulses. She pulled back just enough to whisper instructions in her musical language. Though his translator couldn't parse the words, his body seemed to understand. Their heartbeats began to synchronize, and Sella's copper skin gradually changed to match Jack's own flesh tone, an adaptation he hadn't known was possible. "Ready?" she asked, her breath mixing with his. "Always." The joining started slowly, skin touching skin, pulse matching pulse. Sella's floating curls wrapped around them both like a luminous cocoon. As they moved together, the room's crystals resonated with their combined energy, humming at frequencies that seemed to bypass his ears and vibrate directly in his bones. When the telepathic link finally established, Jack nearly cried out from the intensity. Suddenly, he felt Sella's wonder at discovering humans existed, her dedication to making first contact succeed, her amused affection for his clumsy attempts at cultural sensitivity. But underlying everything was a warm, pulsing sensation he recognized as love, alien in expression but unmistakable in meaning. Through the link, he shared his own memories. His awe at seeing her step through the airlock, the way her laughter made him feel like he was floating in zero gravity, his growing certainty that what they'd found was worth fighting for. Their bodies moved in perfect synchronization, the telepathic connection amplifying every sensation. When they reached culmination together, Jack experienced ecstasy not just from his own body but from sharing Sella's perspective, feeling himself through her senses even as he felt her through his own. As they lay tangled together afterward, the telepathic link gradually faded but didn't disappear entirely. A thread of awareness remained, like hearing someone's heartbeat from another room. "Is normal," Sella explained, her head resting on his chest. "Heartfire binding leaves permanent connection, very faint, but—" Her fingers traced patterns on his skin, always knowing other is there. "I can feel you," Jack marveled. "Not thoughts exactly, but emotions, presence." "And I you." She shifted to look at him, her skin settled into content copper rose. "No pretense now, no performing, just us." Jack stroked her floating curls, watching them drift between his fingers. "Just us," he agreed, "though I have to say your performance was pretty entertaining." She playfully swatted his chest. "Human mockery, I recognize this now." "That's my girl, quick study." The words hung in the air, both of them registering their significance. Sella's eyes searched his face. "Am I your girl?" Jack considered the quantum entanglement of their cultures, the diplomatic ramifications, the sheer impossibility that had somehow become his beautiful reality. "You're something far better than that." "What?" "My partner in this insane cosmic dance we're doing." Sella's laugh chimed through the air, joyous and uninhibited. "Then let us continue dancing, my cosmic partner." Outside Sella's quarters, the station operated on its regulated schedule, unaware that two people inside had just redefined the very concept of interspecies relations. Neither Jack nor Sella knew what the morning would bring, whether their governments would celebrate or condemn their union. But for now, they had each other and the faint thread of connection that promised they'd never truly be alone again. The morning brought unexpected complications. Jack arrived at his office to find Ambassador Chen, his superior, packing behind the desk like a caged predator. "Monroe, we need to discuss your extracurricular activities." Jack's stomach dropped. "Sir." "Your relationship with the Calrathi delegate has not gone unnoticed." Chen's weathered face betrayed no emotion. "Earth Command has concerns about compromised objectivity." "With all due respect, sir, my personal feelings haven't affected my professional judgment." "Perhaps not yet." Chen stepped closer. "But Earth needs this alliance, Jack. The Orion Consortium is already pressuring smaller systems to choose sides. If word spreads that our lead negotiator is involved with the other side's diplomat." "It's not like that, Sella and I." "What you and Sella do is irrelevant to the bigger picture." Chen slammed a file on the desk. "Here's your new assignment. You're being rotated to the Martian embassy, effective immediately." The words hit Jack like physical blows. "You can't be serious." "Your replacement, Ambassador Thompson, arrives tomorrow. Standard rotation protocol." Chen's expression softened slightly. "You're a fine diplomat, Monroe. Don't throw away your career over an infatuation." Jack left the office in a daze, the heart-fire thread with Sella pulsing with his distress. By the time he reached her quarters, she was already waiting at the door, her copper skin flickering with concerned browns and blues. "I felt you," she said without preamble. "Trouble." He explained everything, watching her skin shift through a rainbow of emotions. When he finished, she pulled him inside and to the crystalline seating area. "My government sent similar message," she admitted. "They fear our bonding makes me weak negotiator. Calrathi ambassador must have clear priorities." "So they're both trying to separate us." Jack ran his hands through his hair. "Your people, my people, everyone thinks we're a liability to the alliance." Sella moved closer, her hovering curls creating a private nimbus around them. Then we prove them wrong, show our connection makes alliance stronger, not weaker. How? By being transparent, open, force them to see we can bridge more than cultures, we bridge hearts. Her golden eyes gleamed with determination. Tonight is formal negotiation session. We demonstrate. The main conference room buzzed with tension that evening. Representatives from both governments filled the space, with Earth's President Huang and Kelrathi High Chancellor Vorin presiding via holographic projection. As Jack prepared to present Earth's latest trade proposals, Sela rose unexpectedly. "I request unprecedented action," she announced. "Permission to link with Ambassador Monroe to share emotional truth of our positions." Murmurs erupted. Chancellor Vorin's hologram leaned forward. "You would risk state secrets through heartfire binding." "No secrets," Sela countered. "Only honesty. Let all witness that our personal bond enhances, not compromises, our dedication to peaceful alliance." President Huang frowned. "This is highly irregular." "As his first meaningful contact between our species," Jack added, surprising himself by standing in support. "Perhaps irregular circumstances require irregular solutions." After tense deliberation, both leaders agreed. Jack and Sela moved to the center of the room, aware of every eye upon them. They clasped hands, and the room's lights dimmed automatically as Kelrathi technology synced with Earth systems. The heartfire binding activated more quickly this time, their bodies now familiar with the rhythm. As the telepathic link strengthened, Sela made it visual, holograms projecting their merged consciousness for all to witness. Jack felt himself sharing his genuine desire for lasting peace, his understanding that Earth's resources were finite and Kelrathi technology could open new frontiers. Simultaneously, he experienced Sela's conviction that Kelrathi isolation was self-defeating, her people's deep-seated need for connection they'd forgotten how to articulate. The link revealed their fears too, Jack's worry that Earth might become dependent, Sela's that Kelrathi culture might be diluted by human influence. But underneath these concerns flowed their shared certainty. Together, both species could achieve more than either could alone. When the link dissolved, silence dominated the chamber. Chancellor Vorin broke it first. "I witnessed truth in this demonstration. Perhaps we have underestimated the potential of cultural integration." President Huang nodded slowly. "It appears emotional investment doesn't necessarily compromise professional judgment. Indeed, it may enhance understanding." Relief washed through Jack, but Sela's hand tightened in his. Through their permanent thread, he felt her bracing for something. "I request," she continued, "that Ambassador Monroe and I be officially paired as joint negotiating team. Let our bond represent the alliance we work to create." The audacity of her suggestion made Jack's heart race. But as he looked at the assembled representatives, he saw not disapproval but intrigue. The next hours passed in careful deliberation. By dawn, a consensus had emerged. Jack and Sela would indeed serve as the first joint ambassadorial team, their unique connection becoming a prototype for deeper integration between their worlds. In the privacy of Jack's quarters afterward, celebrating with champagne and fermented callow fruit, they contemplated their new role. "We've become symbols," Jack mused, his arm around Sela as she nestled against him. "Living proof that humans and Kelrathi can love," Sela finished. "Word sounds so simple in English. In Kelrathi, no single word captures it. We have heart fire, mind song, soul dance. Maybe that's part of why our peoples need each other. Different ways of understanding the same fundamental truth." Sela tilted her face up to his, her skin warm rose gold in the soft lighting. "Stay with me tonight, now that we are partners in all ways." "Always," Jack promised, leaning down for a kiss. Their lovemaking that night carried deeper significance. No longer were they sneaking moments of passion between diplomatic duties. They were intertwining their lives officially, consciously. Sela's body sang with bioluminescent patterns Jack hadn't seen before, while the heart-fire connection amplified every sensation to a level that bordered on overwhelming. When Sela moved above him, her floating curls creating a private curtain around them, Jack felt the full force of their merger. The thread of awareness expanded, carrying not just emotion but sensation, until he experienced her pleasure as intimately as his own. The feedback loop built to impossible heights, culminating in simultaneous release that left them both gasping. "What was that?" Jack asked when he could form words again. Resonance feedback, Sella explained breathlessly, happens when heart-fire bond very strong, creates unified pleasure wave. Her skin shimmered with satisfied golds and pinks. Many Kelrathi couples never achieve makes us connected on every level. Yes, she traced patterns on his chest, her copper skin still pulsing gently with afterglow. In Kelrathi culture, this depth of union is why we fear cross-species bonding. Bond so complete, separation becomes impossible, unthinkable. Jack held her closer, contemplating the gravity of their situation. They'd done more than fall in love. They'd created a physiological link that transcended cultural boundaries. He should feel trapped, overwhelmed by the implications. Instead, he felt free. "I don't want to think about separation," he whispered into her floating hair. "I want to think about tomorrow and the day after and building something that matters." Sella's contentment flowed through their bond. "Then we build, my cosmic partner, we build bridges." As they drifted to sleep, Jack's last conscious thought was wonder at how his orderly, diplomatic life had transformed into this cosmic adventure. Whatever challenges tomorrow brought, he and Sella would face them together, not just as lovers or colleagues, but as the first truly integrated partnership between their species. Their connection hummed softly in his dreams, a constant reminder that some boundaries weren't meant to be crossed. They were meant to be dissolved entirely, creating something new and beautiful in their place. 6 months later, the joint ambassadorial experiment had exceeded all expectations. The stellar station now hosted weekly cultural exchanges, with Kelrathi gardening techniques revolutionizing Earth's terraforming projects, while human music had found devoted Kelrathi audiences who appreciated its emotional range. But success bred its own complications. "The Orion Consortium has formally protested your appointment," Captain Sarah Martinez warned during a secure briefing. "They're claiming preferential treatment based on your personal connection." Jack and Sella exchanged glances across the conference table. Their permanent link pulsed with shared determination. "Our connection enables more effective negotiation," Sella countered, her copper skin shifting to confident silver. "Results prove this." "Results the consortium sees as threatening," Martinez continued. "They're pressuring smaller systems to boycott the alliance talks." That night in their now-shared quarters, another precedent they'd established, Jack found Sella standing before her floating prayer crystals, their soft chiming filling the air. "You sense the shift," she stated without turning. Their bond meant questions were often unnecessary. "Everything we've built could crumble." Jack moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Maybe they're right to worry. Our relationship changes everything." "Changes can be good," she leaned back into him. "But I fear we become too visible, target for those who prefer status quo." The assassination attempt came 3 days later. Jack and Sella were returning from a Kelrathi poetry symposium, an event Jack had secretly arranged to help Earth's artists understand Kelrathi aesthetic principles. As their transport entered the station's docking bay, proximity alarms screamed. "Unidentified projectile," their pilot shouted, executing emergency maneuvers. The explosion rocked their shuttle, sending debris spiraling. Through smoke and sparks, Jack saw Sella thrown against the bulkhead. Her skin flashed through pain colors, white-hot silver to deep indigo, as impact knocked her unconscious. "Sella," Jack fought against his restraints, the heart-fire thread screaming with her agony. Station security swarmed the craft as their pilot maintained emergency protocols. Medical teams rushed Sella to the infirmary while security traced the attack's origin. Jack refused to leave her side, holding her hand as Kelrathi doctors worked frantically. Her skin rippled with healing energies, but the process was slower than usual, a sign of severe trauma. When Sella finally stirred, her golden eyes searched for Jack immediately. "Who?" was her first word. "Consortium agents," Jack reported grimly. "They've been arrested, but the damage is done. Earth Command is considering pulling us from the joint position." "No," despite her weakness, steel entered her voice. "We don't surrender." The attack galvanized both governments. Within hours, President Huang issued a strong condemnation, while Chancellor Vorin declared it an act of war against Kelrathi-Earth relations. "If extremists think intimidation will work," Huang addressed the station community, They gravely miscalculate. Ambassador Monroe and Delegate Sella represent the best of our shared future. But private meetings painted a darker picture. Jack sat with Ambassador Chen, now his advisor rather than superior, as they reviewed security protocols. The target wasn't just you personally, Chen explained. Your relationship has become a symbol. Enemies of the Alliance will keep targeting you. So we give up, let them dictate terms through fear. Chen sighed heavily. What if your relationship itself could evolve, show even deeper commitment to diplomatic unity? Jack frowned. What are you suggesting? A formal bonding ceremony, recognized by both governments as official diplomatic alliance. Make your connection not just personal but political. The suggestion left Jack reeling. He found Sella in the station's arboretum, meditating among bioluminescent flowers her people had gifted to Earth. They want us to formalize everything, he began without preamble. Make our relationship official policy. She opened her eyes, copper skin shifting to contemplative bronze. Making public what feels private. Making personal what might prevent more violence, he countered. They discussed late into the night, balancing personal desires against political realities. The next morning, they presented their decision to both leadership councils. We accept the proposal, Sella announced. With conditions, ceremony must blend both cultures equally. And we design the precedent, no government dictates how heartfire binding serves diplomacy. 2 weeks later, the stellar station's central hub transformed into a space where human and Kelrathi aesthetics merged seamlessly. Crystal formations grew alongside Earth flowers. Traditional wedding arches stood beside Kelrathi energy sculptures. Jack wore formal Earth diplomatic attire modified with Kelrathi technological enhancements, fabric that responded to body temperature, symbolizing openness to change. Sella's ceremonial robes shimmered with embedded human solar cells, practical meeting beautiful. As they faced each other in the center of a circle formed by representatives from both worlds, Jack felt the weight of what they were pioneering. This wasn't just marriage, it was the birth of a new diplomatic paradigm. I, Jack Monroe, take you, Sella, as my life partner and diplomatic counterpart. I promise to share not just my heart but my world, to build bridges where others see division. I, Sella of Kelra Prime, take you, Jack of Earth. I promise to blend my soul dance with your heart music, to create harmony where others hear discord. The efficient, a human judge and Kelrathi spiritual leader working together, guided them through vows that honored both traditions. When they reached the climax of the ceremony, something unexpected happened. Instead of the standard earth kiss or Kelrathi forehead touch, they initiated a full heart fire binding in front of everyone. The telepathic link established instantly, but this time, they'd modified it, opened it partially to willing witnesses. Volunteers from both species felt echoes of their connection. The blending of perspectives, the harmonization of thoughts, the complete acceptance of difference as strength rather than weakness. Amazement rippled through the assembly. For the first time, many humans and Kelrathi experienced what true understanding across species could feel like. You've created something unprecedented, President Huang admitted afterward at the reception. A living demonstration of what we're working toward, total integration not through assimilation, but through preserved identity enhanced by connection. The party continued late into the cycle, but eventually, Jack and Sella retreated to their quarters, their home now officially and completely. As they shed their ceremonial clothing, the gravity of their new status settled around them. We are experiment, Sella murmured as they lay skin to skin, her copper form molded against his. Laboratory for possibility. Willing subjects, Jack agreed, stroking her floating curls. I choose the complications this brings. And successes. She traced his jaw with fingertips that now bore a permanent metallic sheen, a physical manifestation of their deepened bond. More species want to join alliance talks, first time since consortium formed opposition. Their lovemaking that night carried ceremonial weight, each touch a reaffirmation of vows just spoken. The heart-fire connection flowed freely between them, no longer limited to moments of passion but a constant presence, like breathing, essential and unnoticed until attention focused on it. As Sella moved above him, her skin painted with patterns of gold and rose that shifted with pleasure, Jack experienced double sensation again. But familiarity hadn't dulled the intensity. If anything, practice had refined it. They knew each other's rhythms intimately now, could build pressure in perfect counterpoint until release arrived as a harmonic convergence rather than mere physical culmination. Afterward, as they drifted toward sleep, Sella's hand found his chest. "Listen," she whispered. Through their bond, Jack felt what she meant, not just his heartbeat, but the subtle vibration of the station around them, the distant pulse of other lives, the cosmic humming of worlds spinning in space. Their connection somehow made him more aware of everything, not less. "Everything's connected," he realized sleepily. "Always was," Sella agreed. "We just built bridge to see it." 5 years later, the Heartfire Institute opened its doors on a purpose-built station orbiting the Sun between Earth and Kelra Prime. Co-directed by Ambassador Jack Monroe and Ambassador Sella Monroe. She'd taken his name for humans. He'd taken hers for Kelrathi. It trained diplomats from multiple species in what had become known as bridge bonding, creating deep empathic connections across cultural divides. Their first child, a daughter named Luna by humans and Star Dancer by Kelrathi, possessed her mother's floating copper curls and her father's green eyes. Most remarkably, she could modulate her skin tone at will, something geneticists on both worlds were eager to study, but her parents refused to reduce to science. "She's not experiment," Jack told overeager researchers. "She's our daughter." Other successful cross-species partnerships had followed their example. Not all chose the depth of heart-fire bonding. It remained an intense commitment that didn't suit everyone, but alternatives emerged. Kelrathi meditation techniques combined with human therapy created new forms of cultural understanding. The Orion Consortium never quite recovered from its hardline stance. As more species joined the alliance, isolation became increasingly untenable. Eventually, they too sought membership, bringing their own unique perspectives to enrich the growing interstellar community. On their anniversary, Jack and Sella returned to Stellar Station's observation deck, where they'd shared their first real kiss. Luna slept peacefully between them, her copper skin and floating curls creating an aura of innocence. "Do you regret?" Sella asked, gesturing at the political complexity their relationship had generated. "Your life would have been simpler." Jack looked at their daughter, felt the steady pulse of their heart-fire connection, remembered the sheer joy of discovering that love could truly transcend species. "Simpler," he agreed, leaning in for a kiss that still sent sparks through their bond. "But nowhere near as beautiful." As they watched ships from dozens of worlds dock at the station, a sight impossible before their connection proved it could be done, they knew they'd been right to choose complexity. Sometimes the most profound simplicity existed on the other side of apparently impossible complications. Their daughter stirred, opening eyes that swirled with inherited gold, reaching for a universe that her very existence proved was waiting to be embraced. The end.